Hello, everybody. It's Captain T-Bone back for another episode of DnD Story Time, and I'm going to be talking about political stuff that's been happening. And there's basically a Cold War happening, and I have my map here, a pretty detailed map. Oh yeah, I like drawing and picturing my own world. Oh, it's something I do just to DMing and all that, where a world is at least built. And we didn't have a section 0, so it kind of messed up their characters a little, but I bended my world to their characters. So that makes a little bit more sense. But luckily, though, they didn't choose races that don't exist. I should have probably texted them what races didn't exist, like dark elves. I couldn't really picture anywhere in this continent, anyways. There's another continent, but we'll get to that in later episodes. But anyways, my players are going to this encampment of soldiers, where they're pretty beaten and all that. And David, the last commanding officer that's present, all of the other ones kind of scram and hit the bucket, basically because they failed in their jobs, and the sergeant, the last commanding officer, is in charge of this bigger army that he wasn't really meant to control, but in a way, he is the leading commander at this point. But he looks at David here. David's like, what? Something wrong? And he goes into the commander tent where usually commanders meet and decide on strategies, because they're trying to relieve a city called Shinano. And I think I didn't cover that, but hopefully I didn't. But anyways, when trying to relieve this city, he brings him in. Comes right back out, brings him into the tent, show him a portrait of David with a family, but he's in these clothing like he's a king or something, like one of those like portraits of kings with their family and all that, with his daughter and his wife. And he gets stunned by finding this out. And so I had him roll literally a perception check, see if gears start turning in his head, like, is this for real? And in his backstory, his wife erased memories of him because danger was coming his way. And I'll get to that in a minute, his danger. And, that boss I'm kind of sad for, because I couldn't really play him as I wanted to, because I made him too OP. But I had to downsize how many minions he had in the boss fight, so it fixed it. But anyways, as he enters the room and is startled by this, he rolls nat 20. And I say, your character realizes something's completely wrong, or something that he doesn't remember happened and he doesn't know. He's going a little cuckoo. And he's a veteran and all that. And the sergeant, he's like, I heard tales. Like, and he's looking at this guy, like David here, like he's a ghost. Sooner or later, the sergeant told him a little bit and said, I thought you died. And I kind of made his character off of a real life figure. If you don't know who that it is, it's Cornelius Rex, or it's off of a Swedish king, Charles the 12th, I think it was. But he was a really good military commander. The citizens loved him. His men loved him. And he was like the kind of king that was literally... He prayed a lot. But he wasn't exactly like it. It wasn't like copy and paste. He had minor differences. Like, he wanted to make this nation that won't be on war bent, but is more of like a neutral nation. And it didn't really happen that way. And then men start flooding in from outside, like getting curious because they're hearing like their new commander, basically, the only sergeant at this area that's willingly actually to take command. He literally takes charge for these guys, and they're hearing him yelling, and they're like, "What's happening? What's happening? Something's not right." So they rush in, and they get shocked, and I roll for and I gave them a +1 for history, and I guess they knew a little bit because these guys weren't off the street guys, or most of them. I rolled it 10 times. I didn't like that. That's also why I gave them +1, give them a little bit more an edge. But most of my players had +3 for some of their stats, and I was like, yeah, like at least +3. Like, lowest stat I think someone had was 0. And all that. But anyways, they start, and some of them are rolling, actually. I was getting real mad at my dice because they were rolling crits. And I didn't budge the dice that time, and they were like, really? Like, and then they start looking like a ghost. And then they go outside, take a breather. And then sooner or later, all his soldiers, and at the end of this session, they're gearing up for war. And let you know, this is a 2-player campaign, not like a 4 or 5, so it's easier to do these character backstories and all that. But anyways, as they're gearing up for war, and they're like, we have a king. And all that. They thought their king died. And they had a huge funeral and all that. But seeing someone that, no way, in any shape or form, is not the king. There has to be some divineness in him. So they take their chances of basically getting killed, or basically, how to put it? Basically, someone that betrayed their nation. And I know there's a word for it. I just don't remember it right now. But as they're getting up, David is still shocked. And the player is actually role-playing. And I'm like, oh my god, he's doing a real good job role-playing. But anyways, he's really shocked on it. And I have him actual kind of a intelligence save a few times and wisdom. And he succeeded on all of them, so ain't like he failed and went into depression. But he managed to compose himself, and him and the sergeant and the other player, he decided to have some fun, and he wanted to lead some troops also to retake Shinano. And it would be difficult because the city was surrounded mostly. But they know where most of their soldiers probably are. And luckily they were right. Because when they sent scouts on their outskirts around it, to their south, they seen very little for surrounding. But there were, like, forces that could still defend if they get charged over that. But battle day came. And this was at the beginning of the new session. And David, he took himself, and out of a force of 30,000 basically, and I think it was around 3,000, something like that. He basically derouted an army of 20,000. With the help of his sergeant, that was basically taking on a generalship, but he was giving him field advice, even though he's like, yeah, we shouldn't probably do this. They might retreat. And they were trying to relieve the city as much as possible. And then, guess what came from the mountainside? The cavalry. And that's where my golden dragonborn, charging on horseback with a total of 300. And there used to be a lot more horsemen, but most of them died through the battle and all that. And this is when the army was ill-equipped. Armies were now getting equipped with what I called magic muskets. Basically, a ball that glows and heats up, but when you touch the gun, it does the same thing, but it explodes and causes it to shoot out like a bullet. And it will go in, skin and stick in there if it has to. But anyways, they were heavily outnumbered, and it was weird. I had the cavalry roll for like percentile, seeing how much damage they could do, and I roll see the defenders, seeing how much they could handle. They rolled a 10%. He rolled a 98. And I explained it. As your cavalry is going charging at their backs, some of their men start realizing, and some of them do try forming up a line that would stop you. Not even a too thick person line. It was just one thin line that didn't really do much. It's slowing you down a little, but those people got annihilated along with a lot of their army. But that was the end, and the army's leader was their king's son. And well, you know, the two countries at war right now are the states of Drakon and the Horizon Empire. And it's kind of difficult because one has no forts or anything. One has one good fort, then that's it. Actually, two, but we don't talk about the other one. And yeah, it's just really, that's what happened during the battle. Armies getting routed, and David, his men, he rolled basically a 25. And my percentile that day were really bad. And I got I believe on the 10-sided that has 10, 20, 30, 40 and all that, the 0 is 0, right? And they had a 2 on the other one. And I'm like, he's gonna love this. Yeah. You completely annihilated them. And then the last roll, I rolled a 99. They all roll 1s, 2s, and 3s. I don't know how it was possible. The dice really didn't like me throughout the whole session, but that end. But yeah. And now, the siege was lifted. And as a result, they relieved it, and merchants that were waiting a few miles away were waiting for the defenders to either help them with their situation when the army breaks through. But when the army broke through, most of the cities, townspeople there were dead bodies in the street. It was a brutal sight to behold. And I had my players roll wisdom. Actually, no, yeah, wisdom. See if they could handle this, or do they have to go back outside and look at that carnage. And they managed to hold, barely. And actually, the Dragonborn almost like puked, but managed to like. Ugh. Not having that tonight, but yeah. The Dragonborn managed to hold her puke. But David, when the people look at him, I seen what the sergeant was going to do, and his men rolled D20, and it was a raw roll. D20, see what would happen, and I had 5 things that could happen, like between numbers and all that, but it was a nat 20, and when a nat 20 happened, he's like, "Our king has returned from the dead!" And at that moment, David really got kind of. That player really wanted to kill him. Like, really? You don't know if I'm even the king. And he got the people's. Like, I. Like, say how the people react to this. And some of them are stunned. Like, a lot of his soldiers were at a moment. But then they, like, start clapping. That's our king! That's our king! Oh, yeah! And they say his whole name, and I'm not going to do that. Voice acting. But anyways. As the army start... It goes northwards. Even further up north. And my players got really... But then an ally army came. Really leaving the city even further. Bringing more supplies, more merchants. And some merchants were giving goods. Not selling, because the king, actually not really king, because at this moment the states of Dracan were actually, they're kind of like a constitutional monarchy, if you know what that is. It's where basically the king or queen can't do certain things, like she can declare war or he can declare war or authorize attacks on nations, but cannot be in charge of taxes. But then they had to go to the council, the noble council, and these were noble men that at one point really loved the king, but after he died they got corrupted through the few people that died, and then some people took over their positions because they were getting old. So through age it got corrupted, and luckily though there was a chancellor, and this chancellor knew David, and he's like, "Don't remember me? Do you remember me from the war, the Great War?" And by the way, there was a Great War, like, yeah, it's kind of hard to say, but yeah. And also, if you guys haven't known, I'm making a story on Wattpad. And it's about David's story. And I'm doing it at my point of view as a DM, what he told me. He actually modified it a little without telling me. So, some of that might be wrong. So I will change it in the future. But I haven't made it yet. I'll post you guys on my update. And go to Captain T-Bone, my Twitter. And I usually say, hey, I'm uploading on Wattpad. And it's just something to keep my mind occupied. Right, and all that. And I like doing those. I hit something, but anyways. Yeah, I just enjoy doing a lot of stuff. I don't like being home alone. It's kind of creepy. But yeah. Anyways, if you guys want more, hit that like button and subscribe. And see you later, recruits. Signing out.